Thank you so much to all of you that have been engaging and sending me emails related to this module and the feedback that I've been getting. I just want to thank you. Keep them coming. It helps to prepare and also to see what I can improve as well to make sure that you're getting value for your time. And in previous week we've been looking at strategic innovations, right? So this week we're looking at learning from failures. See, is an interesting. I consider this topic to be interesting within organization context and the application of it as well is not just to an organizational level, but we can also see how we can apply this at a micro level. So learning from failures is what we'll be looking at today. How can organizations learn from failures, and what actually prevents organization from learning from failures or learn from crisis or learn from disasters? So what actually help organization to be able to do that, and what prevent them not to be able to actively learn from an industry in which they operate in, or learn from competitors, or learn from an event that has happened within a specific industry or outside their industry. So we'll be looking at these issues of learning from failures. So I just want to talk to you through what my learning outcome for today is going to be, and then of course we'll take it from there step by step. So the ideas around learning from failures is the fact that failure is not a bad thing in itself. So failure is not a bad thing in itself. I need to emphasize that everyone fails in one form or the other. It may be the level of failures differs. Every organization fails in one form or the other. It may be in terms of maybe how they serve their customers. Customers are not being satisfied. They need to learn from those experiences. Maybe the way they launch their new products, they need to learn from those experience. So there are different shapes and different forms of failures, and that I'm just using that to reiterate the point that failure is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to fail, but what is bad is what you do with that failure. That is what is bad. What you do or what you don't do with it. That may be what is bad in that sense of the word bad. So failure itself is not a bad thing. So let's look at how we can learn from failures, and can we actually learn from failures, and should your organization actually learn from failures? So the question for today, what we're trying to look at is to look at the why of learning from failure. So we'll look at the why of learning from failure. We will look at that, and we will also look at the types of learners. So at micro levels, so the types of learners. So why we're looking at micro levels? Because organization is made up of people. The question has been raised whether organizations are can we have an organization that doesn't have people inside that organization? So we'll look at types of learning. So we'll look at organizational learning. We will look at when does learning actually take place, when does it occur. We will look at learning from disaster and why organizations don't learn from failures or crisis. So these will be areas that we will look at, and also try to figure out what we can learn from these sections for today. Normally, I've mentioned the issues around the fact that failure is not a bad thing. So it's a question of mindset. So um, I find it really interesting. You have someone who has maybe a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. So instead of maybe, for example, a fixed mindset person, for example, will be looking at what can I say to myself. So instead of maybe I'm not good at these. So you may want to try new ways of. If someone with a growth mindset would be thinking, "Oh, what am I missing?" So someone with a fixed mindset would be, "Oh, I'm not good at this." Someone with a growth mindset will be looking at, "Okay, what am I missing here? What am I missing?" And this happen within organizations as well. And another type of person will be looking at, okay, I'm awesome at this. I'm awesome at this. Um, Another person with a growth mindset will be looking at, okay, am I on the right track? Am I on the right track? Instead of I'm awesome at this. Someone will say, oh, I give up. Um, Another person say, oh, I will use some of the strategies we've learned. So I will use some of those things instead of giving up. I will use some of those things I've learned to re-strategize and also learn. Um, so we'll be saying, oh, instead of saying, oh, I this is too hard. This is too hard. You hear that quite often, right? This is too hard. And instead of saying that, it will be if you have a growth mindset, it will be a case of, oh, this may take some time and effort. This may take some time and effort. So instead of, oh, it's too hard. Oh, this may take some time and effort. And instead of oh, I can't make these any better. Instead of saying that, it could be, I can always improve. So I will keep trying. Another person may be thinking, oh, wait, hold on a minute. I just can't do maths, for example. Oh, I'm going to train my brain in maths. Right. So this happens within micro level. It also happens to organizations as well. So some organization has a way of thinking, because it's populated by people within the organization. You could be like, oh, I made a mistake. I made a mistake. And I could be looking at it as, oh, mistakes help me to learn better. So I learn from those mistakes so that I don't make them again. Like, oh, I will never be that smart. Somebody would think that. Uh, somebody is looking at, oh, I'm going to figure out how others do it. I'm going to figure out how others actually do it. Remember, in previous we were looking at strategic innovations. We're looking at how it can help organizations to make competition irrelevant. That is the growth mindset that populate those type of organization. You're looking at, oh, it's good enough. It could be, oh, is it really my best work? So, in other words, if what you did yesterday is still big to you, it means you haven't done enough today. So, these organizations understand that. It's just like, oh, plan A didn't work. Oh, my plan A didn't work. So, you're thinking that. But just remember that the alphabet still has 25 more letters. So, so in essence, what I'm trying to get you to think about is that learning from failure is a function of mindset, is a question of mindset, is about how you think, is about how you reflect, is about how organization actually think about issues. And this really help managers within the organizations to look at what they can learn from the failures, what they can learn from. It may be a product that the organization is trying to launch, and this product is not successfully launched, and therefore you're now looking at, okay, maybe next time we need to figure out, we need to look at this, we need to do more market research, we need to engage our customers, we need to engage every stakeholders to get the right set of information that we need before we launch. So the mindset has shifted from, oh, we can't make this work, to we can try to figure out how best we can deliver this. So that's one thing. So the question of mindset. Again, I find some of these quotes really telling. So somebody says that I think it was credited to Henry Ford. I don't know how true that was. It said that failure is the opportunity to begin again more intelligently, and I find that really telling, that when one do for you is present you with the opportunity to begin again more intelligently. Another person says is failure is success if we learn from it. So if we learn from it, then it is success in a sense. So I just want to implore you that failure itself is not a bad thing, because as long as organization can learn from them. And how do organization learn from them? How do organization carry on to do their things? So you could have within organization. So what you usually find is that you will find situations around individual learning. So individual within the organization need to learn, the teams needs to learn, and then of course the organization needs to learn. So individual start with the individual, and then the teams, and then the organization itself needs to learn. So is in a continuous cycle, as you can see on your screen, especially at macro level where you're looking at within organization settings. It needs to happen within the individual. So managers have a task to make sure that people, that employees and staff within the organizations learn from what has happened and how they can improve on those, and of course take that further to teams, and that can lead to organizational learning. Within, if again, if you look at the recommended text, that the fact is that you have these categories of learner, for example, that I'm just going to talk about. Somebody says, "Oh, it's only a failure if you don't actually learn. If you don't learn, it's a failure." You could have people that are activists; they'll learn differently. You have people that are maybe reflector theories and pragmatists; they learn differently. So what Horning and Mumford in 1986, as far back as 1986, categorized four different types of learner. And the legal activist, which type of people that prefer challenges of new experience, and the legal pragmatist. These are people that like practical applications of things that they've learned or read or been taught. And you have reflector that learn through maybe watching and thinking and reviewing. You have theories that think through step by step. So people learn differently within organizations. I think that's the point I'm trying to make here. But what happened is that if you are somebody who is an activist, so you're more likely to be flexible and open-minded, and happy to have a go, happy to be exposed to new situations, optimistic about new anything new, and therefore unlikely to resist any form of change. So as a manager, you need to figure out whether your team is made up of an activist. But again, there are some weaknesses around. Maybe they have tendencies to take immediate, obvious actions, and sometimes takes unnecessary risks, and they may rush into action without sufficient preparation, and they could get bored with implementation of the ideas itself. So they have tendency to do much themselves, and that can obviously affect the overall performance. So that's something to reflect on. So the question is, are you an activist? Let's look at the other aspect of types of learning. So as a manager within an organization, so if you figure out what your team is made up of, and then that can really help you to start to imagine how you can help them to learn from adversity, from failures, from crises, from disasters that may have happened within the organization itself, or learn from events within the industry, or learn from competitors, mistakes, and things like that. So reflector are very careful. They are thorough and very methodical in the things that they do. They are good at listening to others, and they assimilate information. They rarely jump to conclusions, so they are reflectors. They have tendency to hold back as part of their weaknesses, and they slow to make up their minds and reach a decision. Tendency to be too cautious and not take enough risks. They're not very assertive in a sense. They are not very assertive. Um, so that's reflector. So we've looked at activists, we've looked at reflect. So let's look at theories. So theories are very careful as well. Logical, vertical thinkers. They are very logical. They are rational and objective based on the framework. They're rational. They are very objective. They are good at asking probing questions. So they are very disciplined in their approach. And but again, some of their weaknesses here is about how they are very restricted in their literal thinking. They very low tolerance for uncertainties and disorder and ambiguities within the business environment. They are intolerant for anything subjective or something intuitive. For example, this is what theories do. They are full of should and ought and must. So you need to be careful when you're a manager. You need to look at the teams, what is makeup of the makeup of your teams or your staff, and then of course that can help you to see how you can manage them better. So pragmatics. They keen to test things out in practice. They're very practical, down to earth, realistic, business like, get straight to the point. Technique overrated. They have that techniques oriented, and of course they have this tendency anyway to reject anything without an obvious applications. They are not very interested in theories or basic principles. They tend to seize on the first expedient solutions to a problem, and very impatient with waffle or tax oriented people. They are not people oriented, as the case may be. So you know, want to be look at some of these categories of learners within your organizations and see what you can do to manage them. If you are their managers, how you bring everyone together to make sure that you're on the same page, so that apparently that can influence your team's learning and also organizational learning as well. So what cups and theories and Honing and Montfort theories, we've looked at different people adopt different approach to learning, and each of us in a way suits a different mix of styles. So we could find someone who is a pragmatist, for example, who has an element of activist. We could find somebody who is a reflector, and you could just sit back and consider options. You could have somebody who is a theorist, do nothing. And so again, just as individual learns, organization needs to learn too. So, and of course, organization is made up of people. So that's why learning from failures is absolutely important for managers to consider it at a micro level, at individual level, and that can definitely lead to what how to help the organization to learn from failures, because organization is not is an entity, right? So going back to our initial definitions of organization, so in week one, so it's made up of people to achieve a desired objective. So it's the individual within the organization that will help the organizations to implement, to execute some of the goals that these organizations have. So if the organization needs to learn, so it needs to start with the people and the teams that make that form different component of the organization itself. So again, organizational learning. So organizational learning for me is the process of detecting and correcting error. So learning is not a learning if you don't correct what has happened before. If you don't correct what has happened. So it's a process of detecting and correcting error. This was far back in 1976. Agoris came up with that. And some organizations hardly learn from failures, from crisis. For example, you look at the cause of the Boeing 737 Max regular crash. So these have happened. The crash happened the first time. It's happened like with Indonesia Lion Air. It happens with the Kenya Airways, for example. So why is it that organization don't learn? Why is it difficult for organization not to learn quickly? So we're looking at so if we say organizational learning is a process of detecting and correcting error. So why would Boeing 737 Max have almost like back-to-back crash involving the same particular type of plane. So this is something that managers needs to learning from failures needs to be taken seriously. It matters because it could mean uh, the end of an organization if it's not taken that seriously. For example, we saw in the period where the 737 Max were involved in the crash, the share price of Boeing actually were largely affected, and this is telling because it shows how if organizations don't correct and detect and correct errors, it can have a massive threat on even their reputation as well. So when does organizational learning occur? So most organizational learning occur when individuals within an organization experience a problematic situations and inquire into it on the organization behalf. So if there are situations within the organization that individual experience and then they try to find solutions to that problem on behalf of the organization. So learning happens in that regard. It could also be that they experience a surprising maybe mismatch between what they expect and their actual result of action. So organization then needs to look at that. Maybe you're launching a new product, and of course that product you're expecting that maybe at the end of the launch you'll be able to attract maybe X, Y, Z number of customers, but that didn't happen. So you expected uh, a result is different from the actual result. So organization, the managers can inquire and find out what really went wrong and try to work and solve that particular and fix that particular problem. So learning has happened in that regard. So it may also be that maybe you're trying to respond to that mismatch, maybe through a process of thought and further actions that maybe lend itself to in a way that allow managers to modify their image or the image of the organization and maybe understand the circumstance that is happening within that particular organization. So this what it does is that it helps organization to restructure their activities, bringing new it brought about maybe new outcomes and expectation into line. So that can change the organization itself. So learning is seen to have taken place in that particular regard. So if an organization manages trying to act on behalf of the organization to solve a problem and fix it so that it doesn't happen again. So again, so you're looking at maybe locus of control here. So when you're looking at how do you then determine what are some of the things? So you're looking at um, you are maybe in control. Are you in control? You have as a manager, so you have reward as a result of their behavior. Do you improve the behaviors of your staff as a result of what has happened? Or do you improve handling of complex data and problem solving within our organizations? Or you also try to get them to achieve um, have that achievement orientations that within the organization. And again, maybe you try to fix some maybe issues around leadership torsions that may happen within the organization itself, so that it doesn't interfere on the type of learning that happens. So external issues may be things like maybe you're trying to blame others, you'll be maybe less involved in the job itself, or easier to lead. So these are a wide range of other things externally that can have an impact on the organization learning itself. But there are levels of learning. So what occurs Chris in 1978, back in 1978, is still relevant today. It talks about draw a distinction between single loop learning. For example, we're looking at efficiency actions modified according to expected and obtained outcome, and then you're looking at maybe double loop learning. These deal with effectiveness. Which is the learning is about single loop learning. So you're looking at maybe, for example, you're looking at governing variables, you're looking at action and consequence. So and then you come back to action strategy as single loop learning, right? So this single loop learning, and with double loop learning, you coming back again to the same point, and then you go the same way to try to figure out exactly what we can do to improve or what we can do to modify what we're trying to do. So this is just to simplify it. So you're looking at assumptions. So you have assumptions. So why we do what we do. So that's the assumption. So in terms of strategies and techniques, so what we do, right? And then results. So what we get. So single loop, you coming back to strategy to improve your strategies and techniques. So what we do. So so that would be the common style of learning, which is just about problem solving, improving the system as it is itself. So this is single loop learning because you start with assumption, you go to strategy and techniques. Assumption being why we do what we do, strategy and techniques being what we do, result being what we get. So you do that, you come back to strategy and techniques, that single loop. With double loop, you coming back to the initial point and then you go through the same process again. So that is double loop learning in that regard. So it's just more than fixing the problem. Those this side in terms of double loop, so is about learning questions, the questioning the underlying assumption, values, and even beliefs behind what we do. So that is about what double learning loop there is pointed to. So with single learning loop, so obviously I've mentioned that already, correcting, detecting and correction of error. So correction involve maybe a strategy that will work within the same governing variables that you've seen on in the previous slide. And the outcome could be maybe just adjustment to or in terms of our behaviors within the organization itself. And sometimes the governing variables are taken for granted without critical reflection because it's not like double loop learning where you're starting all over again. And this could be seen maybe more like a short-term solution. And this is that type of learning that usually happens. So, but with the double loop learning, so one of the things that we've seen is that it has that tendency to reflect on the initial starting point, the assumptions, or that allows us to detect any possible error. It can lead to alteration in our underpinning assumption, and it allows for critical reflection of our rules, our objective, our beliefs, and strategies. And of course, this is what you need within an organization if you are going to learn from failures. So it's like thinking outside the box and changing the rules of the or entirely if it is necessary and critical to success, especially in terms of maybe rapid change that is happening within the organization itself. But when it comes to additional part of maybe triple loop learning, you're looking at learning how to learn. This is the point where you're looking at learning how to learn. So double loop learning, about double loop, which is slightly different. So when you're looking at triple loop learning, so it's you integrating both the element of the first and the second aspect. So you're looking at maybe the mission, for example, mission and strategic plan, assumptions to get result and resource allocations, and that helps to build your performance measurement and learning capability, but is in a cycle, in a continuous flow of questioning. So instead of doing improve, program, and deliver, and then deliver and program service, you come back to this point, double loop. We do this for you in terms of redesigning and revising your program and service plan. But triple loop is in three different phases, if you like. So yeah, it allows for feedback performance cycle to keep improving. So it's about learning how to learn in a sense. Is an interesting distinct concept that you may want to pick out and read more about. So for me, if you think about maybe triple loop development outcome for example, so you're looking at double loop, single loop, for example, would be like, oh, you come back to rules, so you come back to rule behavior and an outcome, right? With double loop, you're coming back to insight, right? When you get an outcome, you're coming back to insight. When in triple loop, after the outcome, you're going back to the principle behind the insight and to the rule, to the behavior and all that. So this kind of simplifying what I was trying to categorize or explain much more earlier, that this is more about learning to learn in itself rather than just learning. So, but of course, you can have in Torvin Reynolds in 1992, they talk about learning from disaster. They identified three key opportunities by which organization they may learn. And one of it is organization specific learning. So organization can learn the individual's organization themselves can maybe that are involved in a particular incident can draw from their own lessons from the event, and then of course can learn from that event. The other type of learning that can happen here is isomorphic learning. So isomorphic learning here is it happens after an analysis of the factors surrounding a specific organization failure. From there, maybe more universally accepted learning can be drawn from that. So organization can learn from maybe other organizations within their industries and then use that to improve their own practices. And iconic learning here represent the broad and general form where simply being informed that maybe a disastrous event has happened. So organization can use that to improve their learning, to learn from their situations, to learn from their problem. Again, so the the individual specific learning and isomorphic learning and iconic learning, these are the three key opportunities by which organization can actually learn. And I've tried to explain that. That by organization specific, you're looking at um, individual organization, maybe they have involved in a specific incident, they learn from that. By asomorphic learning, you're looking at factors surrounding specific organization failure, where organization are learn from. Maybe within an industry, organization are learn from what is happening within that industry to improve their own practices. Iconic, maybe a specific set of incidents. So organization can use that to learn from, to improve their practices, to improve the ways that they do things. And of course, there are some disabilities. There are some things that can impede on the organization from learning. So there are some things that can happen that can impede on the organization from learning. And one of these is the learning disabilities concept that was published back in 1990 by Sengate. So and what is perceived is that several perceived behaviors or mindsets, which is called the learning disability, can impede on the learning process. Sometimes concepts around maybe responsibility, thinking, okay, am I responsible for this? Am I truly responsible for this? It could also be that, oh, you're looking at, oh, the enemy is out there. You're trying to blame someone why that particular product launch wasn't successful, or you blaming your competitor. So this could be part of the issue, and it could be the concept what they call the illusion of taking charge. So you're trying to, instead of you to take charge, you're trying to shift that again. It could also be that you're looking at fixation on events. So everything is cause an effect. So in a way that you, instead of fixing your mindset on a specific event, you're looking at, okay, yeah, maybe I can look at all that. What are the causes? What are the effect of this? What are the other variables? And then, of course, the other aspect being there is this concept called the parable of the boiling frog. So inability or maybe unwillingness of people to react to, or maybe be aware of threat that occur gradually. So something that happens gradually, and individuals are not being taking that seriously. So, and then of course, and it becomes a much more bigger issue. So this is at the heart of the parable of the boiling frog. And we see that in the previous frameworks, or by the Johnson framework, organizational decline, where we proceed that organization actually the organizational decline actually happens in different stages. So the parable of the boiling frog is a very interesting concept here, where most managers are unwilling to. They are just unwilling to react to incident as they happen gradually before they degenerate into something much more bigger. And there is the illusion, the delusion of learning from experience as well. There is the concept that, oh, experience is the best teacher. So most people think, oh yeah, experience is the best teacher, but you can actually learn from the experience of other organizations as well. So that's really important in that regard. There is also the meat of the management team. So management team will save us. So managers needs to get rid of all these learning disabilities that can impede on their ability to learn from failures. So learning organizations. So which organizations are more likely to learn? So there are key things that suggest that organizations are more likely to learn. Organizations that have these ideas around system thinking, where you're looking at interdependence among all the functions of the organizations, working together to achieve a desired result. You're looking at personal masteries within the at micro level of the organization itself, where individual commitment to the process of learning itself needs to happen. Team learning, I've mentioned that as well. So remember in the previous slide, in the very early slide, I talked about individual learning, team learning, and organizational learning. So team learning is absolutely crucial, and you're looking at mental models. You unlearn unwanted values and learn new and applicable values here. And of course, you need to have a shared visions as well. Those organizations that have that shared visions actually learn across the organization itself. So these organizations that have these components tends to learn, tends to do well, and tends to outperform organizations that don't learn at all. So the four elements of organizational learning, as you will find in the literatures, is this culture of continuous improvement. So culture of continuous improvement, in terms of maybe reinforce incentive, commitment to measurement of results. They have this culture of continuous improvement, and they have a defined learning structure. So it's not just, they have a very clear approach in terms of how they learn, and they have these intuitive knowledge processes as well, where the organizational learning processes are embedded into daily workflows. So the learning process itself is kind of tied to everything that we do, the organization members do on a daily basis, and they can leverage on technology platform to be able to do that. And they have supportive leadership within that organization as well. So leaders, these are leaders who are committed to organization learning. So they have a very clear goals and visions for the organization learning itself, and then they act as a champion for change or a role models for others within the organization itself. So these four components are very essential to organizational learning. So they, of course, you have issues around sometimes how organizations learn. It could happen maybe maybe by training, where you have inductions, maybe new staffs are coming into the organization. It could be by maybe seminar, for example, or a workshop, or a training, specific training, or it may also be a form of coaching as well, or mentoring. So these are wide range of areas that the organization obviously can tap into. Managers can tap into. You can do induction, you can do seminars, you can do workshop, you can do training, you can have some element of coaching within the organizations or mentoring within that particular organization. So that is absolutely crucial. So learning, developing that learning culture, I've talked about that already. So most organizations trying to align learning with their business, and then they try to integrate as well. So integrate learning with business processes. So you see that, and of course you provide appropriate learning opportunities. So you need to create that learning opportunities environment within your organization. So, and of course, you need to be able to manage and manage your learning effectively, how it happens across the different processes. If you're getting people to learn, maybe through seminars, through workshop, through coaching, through mentoring. So you need to make sure that there's a very clear process in place for employees, for every staff within the organization to be able to learn from one another, to be able to learn and share best practices within that particular organization as well. So that is absolutely essential. So finally, just going to look at, so there are these particular frameworks, model of learning from failures was based on Labit and Reed in 2013, was published in Safety Science. This particular paper, it looks at some generic lessons that happens as part of learning from failures. They're looking at generic lesson one, for example, too much belief in previous success. So I talked about the fact that if what you do yesterday is still look very big to you today, it means you haven't done enough today. So too much belief in previous success. And there were classical example like maybe the Titanic disaster in 1912, for example, was a classical example of that. Experience with success can and has been counterproductive based on what the literature has suggested. So too much belief in previous success is a big problem in that regard. So coping with growth. So some organizations are not able to cope. So inability to cope with high rates of growth may be another factor that can contribute to disaster failures. We saw with Toyota product recall. And there is the point number three there is about maybe misconception, for example, of a fashionable paradigm. So sometimes we think, oh, we have this plan, we have these business continuity plans in place. So, but plans are just plans. If you don't implement them, if you don't work on them, if you don't act on them, they are not going to help you to achieve the things that you need to achieve within the organization. So this could be another reason why there is man-made disasters within the organization. For example, maybe ideas around lean thinking or lean manufacturing, and sometimes it's confused with cost cutting exercise. So these are some of the reasons why learning from failures don't tends to work well within the organization. Sometimes it may also be as a result of legislation where organizations are trying to just comply with legislation and just tick box approach to issue. So this is another issue that may also impede on learning from failures within organization as well. The other point is around the attitude around our operate. You fix attitude. So you're treating it, certain incident in isolation. So you need to look at mistakes as part of a broader issues within your organization. So it's not just something that you just think that you can trade and then you isolate items. So these are really crucial. The other aspect is the generic lesson 6, which is about no news is good news. Um, Sometimes people think that, oh, if it's not broken, so you don't need to fix it. So that's a very passive attitude towards maybe learning within organizations. That doesn't really help. And sometimes the organization, some managers think that bad news, bad persons, whoever bring bad news to the organization is a bad person. So they don't like managers. Most business executives don't like good news. They don't like bad news, right? So they always prefer to hear good news, and these can actually prevent create opportunities that will help managers to actually learn indeed. And of course, there is the ideas around maybe everyone own machine is the highest priority to him. So more like in a classical traditional maintenance sectors where every machine is the highest priority to its operator. So the one who shout loudest get his job done. So, but shouldn't be learning, organization learning or learning from failures should be a collective effort. Solving a crisis is a forgotten experience. Again, this is an outdated type of thinking. So organization managers need to think about learning from experience in a way that can help them to navigate in a much more collective, not just a one-off exercise. The fact that a crisis happened, we've learned from it. We should be able to key in and continue to learn. So finally, you start to look at maybe skills level sometimes as well. These skills matter. That's why trainings and development are absolutely essential for managers to be able to look at and work out from there and see how what they can improve and how they can actually learn from what has happened. So thank you very much. And in the next couple of weeks, so we'll be looking at corporate social responsibility. We'll be looking at ethics. We'll be looking at corporate social responsibility, and of course, I will, as usual, at this stage, I'm encouraging everyone to start maybe working on your assignments. So starting the draft, and of course, I will have a section as well where I will try as much as possible to address the assignment questions and try as much as possible as well to engage with every piece of the cases we've been looking at within the seminars as well, within the live section. So try as much as possible to engage with them. I'll be having a live sections where I'll be discussing your assignment in terms of how you can go about addressing them, and I will also do, as usual, do a commentary of some of the cases that we've been looking at and how you could potentially answer them as well. So before I leave you, I think I just want to say that I just want to mention that if you haven't subscribed, try to subscribe to the channel, which I've created to provide this additional support. It's on YouTube. It's still if you look at just put in my name on YouTube there, Oluwaseyi Afemishebi, you will be able to see it. And so thank you so much. We'll be looking at business ethics in the next couple of lectures and corporate social responsibilities as well. So thank you very much, and I hope to see you shortly again.